Welcome back, dear viewers. You're still watching The Breakfast Show live on Nile TV International. It's now time for a second topic of discussion for today, and we are going to be talking about the Egyptian-Russian cooperation in the automotive industry. And recently, Minister of International Cooperation, Rani Al-Mashot, met with the Russian Minister of Trade and Industry, Denis Manturov. The aim of the meeting was to discuss bilateral economic and trade cooperation between Egypt and Russia. And to shed more light on this issue, we're most delighted to be joined over the phone by Dr. Yousef Mazhar, former Assistant Minister of Industry. A very good morning, Mr. Dr. Mazhar, and thank you so much for joining us on The Breakfast Show.
Thank you for calling.
Doctor, first of all, if you can tell us about the long history of the Egyptian-Russian cooperation, notably in the industrial field.
Well, let me say the following. This is a very long-lived cooperation between Russia, which is now Russian, but also before that the Soviet Union. And it was based and really exploded during the time of President Nasser, when we had problems with connecting with many of the Western countries. And this area really was taken completely by, at that time, at the beginning, Russia and the Soviet Union, as the case may be. And it's a very big advantage, because when you say automotive industry, the basis is not just to assemble a certain kind of a car. It is to get all the components of this car, sub-deliveries, sub-providers, and this is very well provided with this group of countries. And this agreement would be very useful, because, we are moving, we will have buses also. Don't forget that when we talk about cars, it's cars, buses, transport vehicles, and these can be broken down into components. I mean, there's a gearbox, there's an engine, there are traction, there's the chassis. So having a number of suppliers which can cater to the different, let's say, assemblers in Egypt would be a very, very good step. And this grouping, as explained by the minister, can access all kinds of sub-manufacturers. I think it's a very good idea, and we can, with your help, expand on it, and we can also look a bit in the future. We've got some new ideas about the future in Egypt of the electric car, and for sure this is going to be on the list, because with the electric car we will have a new group of suppliers, new group of things, and it's already been announced that this is on the list. So I think we've got a very good subject here. I'm sure you will be able to, with your questions, elaborate and open up for our viewers everything about this subject.
Yes. Dr. Mazhar, also, how do you see the bilateral cooperation between Cairo and Moscow in the field of manufacturing vehicles and launching new production lines for manufacturing Russian vehicles in Egypt?
Well, you see, the most important thing about this cooperation is the number of sub-suppliers that exist in this grouping. A vehicle is, we always say that in a vehicle there are nearly 2,000 sub-suppliers. So there are parts that do the heavy engineering work, like gearboxes, like hubs, like also the engines themselves, also all the parts of the chassis itself, the springs, also the body. So when you talk about automobile industry, you're not talking about one supplier, you're talking about a group, and if this group is set up in Egypt, it can cater to more than one manufacturer. And this is a very sure way, because you specialize, for example, in braking systems, to stop the vehicles, and you can supply to one bus company, you can supply to another one, you can supply also to the normal transportation. And if you allow me, and if you let me look a bit into the future with the announcements lately that we are going to also engage in making electric cars, and this has been announced on the political level by the president himself. We have another area, and we choose to talk about this. I'm very happy to provide you with some information.
Yes, please elaborate, Doctor.
Well, let us say this is very interesting. Yes, this is very interesting because don't forget that a normal petrol engine is a heavy engine which works with petrol or with diesel, and it is a big metal engine. It has got pistons inside it. It has got moving parts like cranks, etc. Now, with the announcement that one of our national companies is going to make the electric cars, which has been announced, and they already mentioned how many per year, we must note that, and our viewers should also note, that if you open up the hood of an electric car, you will not find this engine. You will not find the pistons. Mm-hmm. You will find empty space, you'll find cables, you won't find the gearbox, and you will have little motors, electric motors, which connect directly to the wheels. Mm-hmm. So, having made this very quick introduction, imagine who can supply to this industry. Electric motor manufacturers, number one. Number two, controlling mechanisms, number two. Number three, cables and connections. So it's a new ball game, and if the sub-suppliers of these exist in such an agreement, we will be able to feed all our future non-petroleum or non-fluid, let's say, vehicles with these supplies. And this is very important because this is the trend, the world trend. There will be no let's say, pollution. Electric cars do not pollute. They are noiseless, and they're very economic. So if you care to take up this subject or have any questions, I'll be very happy to answer them.
Doctor, what about manufacturing fishing ships and super tankers?
Ah, yes, okay. Yes. That's very, very important. It's even, we're always interested in talking about vehicles and automobiles, but what we call heavy industries, we have already two areas which are very specialized in this. We have the Mediterranean, which is Alexandria, and the ports associated with Alexandria, and they have got shipyards there. We have got another area which is all along the Red Sea, which is also have a number, especially in Hurghada and also in Suez. We have other manufacturing possibilities. So you start by, it's not only tankers. You start by tugboats, and as you saw when we were very successful in floating this accident that happened in the Suez Canal, two of the main tugs were made in Egypt. And also, after that, this let's say, tanker or this cargo vessel, it was put out of action, was towed. And again, the two tugs that towed it were also manufactured in Egypt. So it's a very, very good area. It can be exploited in the north for the Mediterranean. It can be exploited on the Red Sea, and the Red Sea goes from Suez all the way down to Hurghada, all the way to the Sudanese border. So it's a massive industry. It's a heavy industry. It takes lots of local material, and our partner in this case is very qualified for all that. I think it's a very good idea. We need a big, let's say, fleet of vessels, whether they go into the petroleum sector or into container sector. We need that. Even just making the containers here, these big boxes, is a very lucrative industry. I think you've got a very good subject that you brought up for the discussion.
Thank you so much, Doctor. But we can talk also about the need to establish a deeply rooted economic relation between Egypt and other development partners. Can you shed the light on that, please?
Yes, well, I think we have over the years been very successful. And as time went by, we had the periods, of course, a long time ago, before for the present history. We had, let's say, relationships with the Western world. We had with the UK for a long time. Then we had a period where the cooperation with Germany was very, very strong, and the big manufacturing companies in Germany made bridges. They set up the iron steel. So it was a very good, let's say, way of having a global, let's say, workout with everything. Then we moved over to the Soviet Union, as we said at the time, later onto Russia. And this is a very good way to, let's say, handle many subjects with one source. Because you can, it's like having anything that you need, you can call up on this grouping, and they will supply it, because they are also suppliers between themselves. It's a very good idea, and it will provide a lot of labor possibilities, and it will also enable you to move into the new industrial areas which are being set up now with every government. Every government now on the other side of the Nile, we have a new industrial area, and there's a lot of space. Electricity is no problem at the moment, and the markets are there.
Yes.
So I think you hit the nail, hit the nail on the head. It's a very lucrative area and very, very comprehensive.
Yes. Thank you so much, Dr. Yousef Mazhar, former Assistant Minister of Industry. Thank you so much for your insight, and thank you so much for joining us on The Breakfast Show. And dear viewers, we move to a quick break, and then be back the remaining the Bribe on Nile TV International. And dear viewers, I guess by this we come to the end of today's episode of The Breakfast Show. Just a quick recap of what we discussed. We talked about the visit of the Egyptian Minister of Tourism to Germany and boosting the tourism industry in Egypt. And we also talked about the Egyptian and Russian cooperation, especially in the automotive industry. Dear viewers, in the company of myself and my dear colleague Dina Singh. Until we meet again, this is goodbye.